Hey guys, I'm back. Finally. I haven't uploaded for a few weeks, or has it been a month? I don't know. The time is getting away from me. But if you did not see my post in my community tab, I do work a full-time job, but I also have a small business that I run from home, which gets super busy during Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I am thankful for it, but I did miss doing my videos, so that's where I've been, that's what I've been doing, but I'm back now, and today I'm going to tell you about a case from 2012. 70-year-old Molli McClaran and her 72-year-old husband, Leon, who is better known as Bubba, lived in a home on Kingdom Road in rural Unionville, Tennessee, which is in Bedford County, about 40 miles southeast of Nashville. Also living in their home were Molli and Bubba's two grandchildren, Chloie Leverette, who is 9 years old, and Gage Daniel, who was 7. The children were staying with their grandparents while their mother, Cheryl Daniel, dealt with some drug addiction and mental health issues. Cheryl still saw her kids on a regular basis, was very much a part of their lives. She was working on herself to make a better life for not only herself, but also her children. She wanted to be the best mother she could be and let her parents care for her kids because she wanted what was best for them and knew that she wasn't in a position to raise them properly at that time. So that is why the kids were living with their grandma Molly and grandpa Bubba. The grandparents had legal custody of them for the time being. They were helping Cheryl out, but they also loved being with their grandkids and having them around. Gage was especially close to his grandpa Bubba. He followed him everywhere. They were very, very close. Chloe was in the 4th grade and Gage was in 2nd grade at Unionville Community Elementary School. Both the children loved living with their grandparents. They particularly loved the animals. There was a pony, they had goats, chickens, dogs. They had a cousin that lived close by that they could play with. The kids were just really happy and well taken care of there. Sunday, September 23rd of 2012 seemed to be a normal day. Neighbors saw Chloie and Gage playing together outside the home in the yard around 6:30 p.m., but later that evening, around 10 o'clock, a passerby saw smoke and flames coming from the house and called 911. Firemen and police arrived quickly, but Bubba and Mollie's farmhouse was already fully engulfed in flames. Battling the fire was difficult due to the fact that the house sat really far back from the road. There was like a long gravel driveway, and there were no fire hydrants close by, so water had to be hauled in to fight the blaze, which of course took extra time. No one could enter the home because of the extreme heat, and it seemed sadly that no one inside the home had been able to get out. The blaze was intense and quickly caused the roof and the walls of the house to collapse. Firefighters spent hours battling the fire, and it was still smoldering on Monday morning as they began the process of trying to recover the bodies of Molly, Leon, Chloe, and little Gage. Investigators believed at the start that all 4 of them were asleep in their beds when the fire started and that all 4 had perished. But as they sifted through the debris, they only found remains belonging to Molly, Bubba, a miniature poodle, and a pet bird. I believe it was a cockatoo. They didn't find any remains belonging to Gage or Chloe. They brought in heavy machinery to lift and sort the larger, heavier pieces of debris. Searchers filled a half a dozen wheelbarrows with fine ashes from the fire, and they even set up sifting tray tables to go through every little bit, trying to find some trace of the children. Forensic anthropologists used yard rakes and even paintbrushes, trying to find a small bone fragment, a tooth, or something. Cadaver dogs also combed through all of the debris, but still no sign of either of the children were found. So they were probably thinking, okay, maybe this is somewhat positive news. Maybe the kids got out and ran because they were terrified. They could be somewhere close and just hiding out of fear. Search teams with sniffer dogs in tow fanned out around the area surrounding the home. Helicopters flew above using infrared, hoping to find Chloie and Gage somewhere near the property. But they didn't find them, or any sign of them at all. They then began to wonder if it was possible someone had taken the children. Family members and people who knew the family were questioned. Cheryl, the children's mom, didn't have them. She fully cooperated with police. She even took a polygraph, passed it, and was cleared. Gage's father was also determined to have no involvement. Chloe's father had passed away years before when Chloe was just a baby. Multiple family members were checked into. None of them had the children. They had no suspects and weren't even sure a crime had taken place. A statewide endangered child alert was put out, flyers were distributed, and news stations reported that officials were looking for 2 children missing after a house fire. Now, according to the autopsy report, the cause of death for Molli and Bubba could not be determined due to the remains being severely charred. Both had to be identified by x-rays and DNA analysis. The medical examiner found thermal fracture of the skulls, ribs, arm, and leg bones, and soot was found in their airways. Toxicology reports showed morphine and alprazolam. I'm not positive I'm pronouncing that right, but it was found in Molly's liver. She was taking these because she had been fighting breast cancer. In the Unsolved Mysteries podcast on the case, Cheryl mentions that Bubba and Molly's remains were found in the basement of the home and they were right beside each other. But Molly and Bubba did not sleep in the same bed or even in the same bedroom. In fact, their bedrooms were 20 to 30 feet apart, according to Cheryl. So she found it strange that they would be found that close to one another if they had been asleep in their beds when they passed away. It could not be determined whether they were alive when the fire started or not. Now that part confuses me because I assumed that if soot was found in their tracheas, then that would indicate that they were breathing and thus alive during the fire. A medical examiner I am not, though, so if you know the answer to that, let me know down in the comments. Multiple local, state, and national fire experts were called in to try to figure out what caused the fire and, how it started. There were dozens of propane tanks stored in the basement that Bubba had brought home and saved from his job at a propane company. Some of the tanks were empty, but a few still contained a little bit of fuel. Now, unlike kerosene, diesel, and gasoline, propane fuel has no expiration date. It stays potent even after being stored for years. Cheryl says those tanks had been in the basement for over 30 years, though, and nothing had ever happened with them. These tanks were stored in a part of the basement that was directly underneath Chloie and Gage's bedroom, and investigators say there was evidence some of the tanks had ruptured, but there was no indication any of them had caused an explosion. A basement door had been left open, which acted as a draft. It sucked air and heat from the fire straight up to the bedroom where Chloie and Gage slept. The basement door being left open was very unusual because Bubba stored his tools down there, and he was absolutely adamant about making sure that door was closed and secured every single night. There were a lot of items inside the home. Molly and Bubba were somewhat of hoarders. The sheriff said it was hard to navigate through the residence before the fire because the home was so full of stuff, and there had been several space heaters turned on throughout the home that evening since the weather outside was cooler. Molly, who, like I said, was suffering from breast cancer, was on oxygen. So she had oxygen tanks, and she was also a smoker. And I did read a report saying she did sometimes smoke in bed while on oxygen. So obviously, there were a lot of fire hazards in the home. Propane tanks, items stacked up, possibly close to space heaters, oxygen tanks, and lit cigarettes. Lots of different ways the fire could have possibly started if it was accidental. They brought in the best of the best when it came to fire investigators, and yet they could not figure out what exactly started that fire. So still to this day, they aren't sure if it was arson, if someone had deliberately started the fire, or if it was an accident, but they did say they leaned more towards it being an accident. So why were no remains of the children found? It takes 1400 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit to cremate human remains. This level of heat reduces the body to dry bone fragments and basic elements. Now, even during a professional cremation in a cremation chamber, when they open the crematorium doors after a body has been in there, it's not just a pile of ashes ready to be put into an urn. There are bone fragments and sometimes teeth left, and these are ground down and then added to the ashes that are given back to the family. This house fire at the McClarans is believed to have reached around 1500 degrees. Experts say it is nearly impossible to destroy an entire human body, even a small one, in a house fire. You're gonna find something remaining. It is worth noting that Molli and Bubba had recently made a change to their will. They had changed the beneficiary, so in the event of their death, everything would go to Chloie and Gage. This change had been made about a month prior to the fire, and it had been locked inside a safe located in the home. Before anyone asks, I do not know who the previous beneficiary had been. After the fire, it was discovered that the safe containing the new will was missing. It was not found in the debris. Now, I thought most safes were fireproof. I did my research, and that is not necessarily true. Some safes marketed as fireproof can't take the heat for more than 30 minutes before becoming damaged. A lot of models are rated for an hour of fire exposure. That's it. While some of the best safes you can buy carry a 2-hour fireproof rating. Despite what their labels say, some safes marketed as fireproof can melt. Beware of any company that calls their safe fireproof. There are no fireproof consumer safes on the market right now. They are all fire resistant, meaning that they can resist heat and smoke, and some also protect against water, but they only resist these elements for a period of time, usually only 30 minutes to 2.5 hours. We, of course, don't know what type of safe Bubba and Mollie had, but the fire in their home burned for quite a while. It was still burning and smoldering in spots the following day. The fire was so hot that they said it liquefied metal. No walls were left standing, and 63,000 gallons of water was used to put it out. The basement was filled 4 feet deep with ashes. I am not saying the safe was incinerated in the fire. I am definitely not an expert. It could very well have been stolen by someone who abducted the children and set the fire. I just wanted to point out that it being destroyed in the fire could be a possibility based on what information on safes I was able to find. Side note, for those of you that own a safe or maybe thinking about purchasing one, they say the best place to put a safe in your home is like in the corner where 2 walls meet, and make sure it's on the ground floor. That provides the most protection to it in the event of a fire, tornado, etc. Bubba and Mollie were known as very kind, super generous, caring people who did not have any known enemies. Family members don't know of anyone who would have had a reason to harm Mollie and Bubba, or have reason to abduct Chloie and Gage or harm them. Did these 2 precious little ones die in the fire and there was somehow just nothing left? Or were they taken, their grandparents murdered, and the home set ablaze to try and cover it up? Or did Chloie and Gage make it out of the house? Someone saw them, took the opportunity, and grabbed them. If this was deliberate, who would target an elderly couple and take 2 little kids? If this was a crime, it seems likely to me that it would have to be someone that the couple knew. There's no direct evidence, however, that foul play is involved in Bubba and Mollie's death or the children's disappearance, and there have never been any suspects or persons of interest. The fire destroyed any physical evidence that could have told what exactly happened. Cheryl did say someone was taking down flyers of the children that had been hung up. Was this someone that was involved and didn't want their pictures distributed? Who knows? Some people do that shit just to be jerks. Due to the extensive fire damage, we're unsure if anything was stolen from the home. The fire destroyed any physical evidence that could have told what exactly happened. Like I said, the McClarans reportedly had a lot of items in their home, but I don't know what kind of items there were. If it was just random stuff, or if it was antiques or other items of value someone would have wanted. We know the safe was missing, but like I said earlier, safes are not actually fireproof, and it's possible, in my opinion, due to what I found online, that the safe was destroyed in the fire. Or perhaps it was stolen because someone knew the updated will, leaving everything to the children, was in it. So what happened? Let me know what you think in the comments. I don't know what to think. I myself lean more towards arson and an abduction, since they found no trace of Chloie and Gage. I mean, they found remains of a mini poodle and a cockatoo, both obviously significantly smaller than children, so you would think that they would have found something left of 2 children. Multiple sightings were reported of the children, even one as far away as Costa Rica, but none of these amounted to anything, except for possibly one. There was a sighting in a Tennessee diner in 2013. A customer saw a girl that resembled pictures she had seen circulated of Chloie, and she did take pictures of the little girl. Cheryl, Chloie and Gage's mom, has seen the pictures the lady took, and she believes the girl in the diner was Chloie. The person with the child in the diner, I'm unsure if they were male or female, had paid cash, and there were no cameras in the restaurant, unfortunately. Of course, by the time authorities could go check, they were gone, and they had no idea where the person and the child had gone. The photos were never released to my knowledge, which is a shame, because maybe someone could come forward with information. Maybe someone would say, no, that was me with my daughter that day, or someone else would recognize the girl and the adult and say, hey, I saw them too at this other place. This isn't the case, though, unfortunately. In 2012, Chloie stood 4 feet 8 inches tall and weighed 75 pounds. She has brown hair and hazel eyes. She would now be 18 years old. Gage was 4 feet tall and weighed about 50 pounds. He also has brown hair and hazel eyes. He is listed as special needs due to him having Dandy-Walker syndrome, which is a congenital brain malformation involving the cerebellum. It affects his speech and motor skills. He would be 16 years old now. Their mother, Cheryl, I'm happy to say, is now fully recovered from her addiction, and she works with people struggling with drug addiction, helping them, which I think is great. She has never stopped looking for her children or given up hope that they are still alive and will eventually come home to her. I'd imagine the hardest part has got to be the not knowing, not being sure if your children are out there somewhere or if they passed away back in 2012. It's got to be a really difficult thing to live with and think about every single day. This case reminds me a lot of the Sauter children. It's another very sad, very strange case involving a house fire back in 1945, where 5 of 9 children in the home disappeared. 4 of the kids escaped the fire, and they expected to find the other 5 in the rubble, but they didn't. Most of you have probably heard of it. If you haven't, there are tons of videos here on YouTube on it. If you have any information on Chloie and Gage's whereabouts or the death of Bubba and Mollie, please contact the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation at 1-800-824-3463. Even if you think what you know is insignificant, it could be just the thing police need to know to solve this. Thank you all for watching. Please click that subscribe button and give this video a like so I know it's being seen. And it also helps bump it up in the YouTube algorithm, which means more people will see Chloie and Gage's story. If you don't want to subscribe, that's okay too. Just know I really appreciate you being here for this video. I would highly suggest checking out my entire missing playlist, as each case I cover is super important and deserves more exposure. I appreciate every single one of you so very much, and I will be back soon with another video. Bye.